Well, I've now received the replacement part on the right and a new 239 coax connector. The board is a little different. This, of course, is the latest version of the circuit board that still provides the same purpose. Let me flip the other over. Here you can kind of see that there's quite a difference in the etching on the new board as compared to the old board. There are some holes missing for wires to go through and make a connection, especially the black wire and the white wire in the meter lamp part. But that is what the new revision looks like, the new board. It's a much better looking board. And I particularly like the variable capacitor, which is right here, compared to the other one. I've got it turned around. Compared to this one, you can see, maybe a little closer, that they're two different parts, actually. And I like the way the new board is populated. So my job is going to be taking the schematic diagram, reviewing it, and discovering the now appropriate places to connect the wires. Obviously, on top of the toroid right here, there'll be this free wire is one that goes to the center pole of the PL259 connector, this one. And the other one goes to the rotator switch. If you remember in the first videos, it was those two wires that was really hindering me from getting the board out. And it's going to be a chore to get the board connected back and put in, installed correctly. So I'll keep you posted as we go along. Okay, I've done a little more research in looking at the schematic and the board, and I've realized a couple of things. One, I'm going to make some jumpers that will make it easier for me to install the board. And I'll show you that in just a moment. I'm going to unsolder the PL239 connector so that I can find out the length that I need. I've already removed the standoffs and mounted them on the new board. So once I get this connector off, I will cut this wire that goes into the toroid to the correct length and solder the PL259 on. But in looking at the board, I have discovered a new revision. This is revision 7. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this or not, but okay, I've done a little more research. One of the first things I'm going to do is remove the old P39 connector so I can check out the length of the wire that goes from the central connection to the wire coming up through the toroid, as we mentioned earlier. So I'm just going to get it out of the way. I do have a new P39 connector that has the bolts and nuts with it. It came with the new board, and I've already moved the standoffs, as you can see, on each side over from the old board. But one thing I've discovered is that on the new board there are actually some places provided First off, there's markings on the new board that the old board did not have. If you look at the old board, there's nothing marked. The new board has painted not only the components, but the revision number and some other things. But I began to discover, in looking at the schematic, that at the bottom left and the bottom right and in the center, they have pre-drilled some holes for the wires that I unsoldered before. And that's going to make it very, very convenient to connect the new wires, to connect the wires back onto the board. However, I discovered that the amount of cable that I have to work with, it's so limited that I'm going to use some jumpers, and I've cut me 3 wires for jumpers, one for the white, the ground, and the black wire will become a brown wire, and that'll ease the installation of the board. Let me show you the problem with the length of cable. Here we are. I've cleaned up a little bit of the place where the board was, and this is the loose wire that I need to attach to the board. And there is no give in the wire, and it's going to make it very difficult to solder back onto the board and push the board back into place where the 239 connector goes through the hole. So I'm just going to jump a little bit on this wire. You can barely see right down here the shield, which is the ground. I'm going to extend it with my jumpers, and it'll just make it so much easier in the installation and won't be so tight, and I can curl up the extra wire. Because it is only power through the lamp circuit, it's not going to make any difference on the tuning ability. So that's the reason I have the jumpers. Okay, folks, I'm about ready to mount it back into the tuner. I've soldered the PL259 on with the right length, as you can see, and my little jumper wires that are going to make it so much easier to just kind of extend that little short cable. There's plenty of room in that corner for it. There's a little vise that I had holding the board up in the vise so that I could do the soldering work. And there's one last look at the old board. And now I'll join the jumpers together and mount the board back in. Might show you a shot of it just before it goes in. Okay, folks, I've got the card in, and I'll give you a little secret. In the previous video footage, I soldered the jumper wires on first, but after tackling it and trying to get the board started back in, I realized it would be better to solder the jumpers on the leads that I'm trying to extend. So I unsoldered them from the board, and it made it a whole lot easier. You can see I have the wire on the bottom right side. That is the white wire. In the middle is ground, and the brown black wire is in the left bottom corner. And I use some heat shrink tubing to cover and make insulation over the solder joints in the extension of the wires. So that's kind of what it looks like. at this point, let me show you, it will go in this way with quite a bit of fiddling. And on the back, I can show you what the back looks like. You have to be real careful with the wires that are soldered because they're brittle. On the back, this you can't tell much about the soldering from that angle, but this long stiff steel wire is going to be connected down here to the rotary switch. Let me get that out of the way. Right down here at this contact where my finger is. That's where we removed it from. So the next time I show you the video, the board will be in place and the wire will be soldered on, the steel wire, and it'll be a matter of doing a little positioning and inserting the screws and nuts to mount the board with the standoffs. So we'll see that in a future video. Okay, folks, I've got the board mounted back in place and the wire attached to the rotor switch. Took a little bit of doing to get the tiny screws in. I'll tell you a trick that I used. There's screws on each side. Let me see if I can show you. Screws on each side of the coax connector, as well as the screws on the standoffs right here. And one of the secrets to getting those screws in is get yourself a magnetic telescoping tool. It allows you to catch the screws and nuts when you drop them, but it also helps aid in getting in to the camera and I don't get along too well, to the nuts. That made it so much easier. It's always handy to have one of those around in the shack. So, also, while I had it open, this is a great product, Deoxit. Most people know about it. It is a good contact cleaner and takes the oxidation off contacts. And I took care of the rotor switch while I had it all apart here and gave it a little dose of that. And I'm ready to test it. Once I test it, I'll then pull it back out and put the cover on it. But I do want to test it before I go any further. So that is the board installation completed. Well, here we are with the completed project, and the tuner has been placed back in its home position. The disruption of the shack is now settled back into some kind of organization. Let me give you a demonstration. First, let me turn off the meter light so that you can better see the needles. This is a dual needle meter. The forward power will be coming up this direction, and if there is any reflected power, it will be seen, of course, on this scale. Let me demonstrate it for you. Kilo Fox 5, Sierra Kilo Papa, testing. 1, 2, 3, testing. Kilo Fox 5, Sierra Kilo Papa, testing. 1, 2, 3. Kilo Fox 5, Sierra Kilo Papa, clear. Alright, I'm pleased with the results, and I hope that you will please leave me some comments how I can better make the next videos. And if you like the video, please click the like button. And I appreciate you watching. Thanks so much. 73.